Commander John Mitchell stood at the viewport of Earth Orbital Station Delta, watching as the alien ship approached. It was huge, at least 3 miles long, and shaped like a perfect silver oval. Small lights blinked across its surface in patterns that seemed almost like writing. "It's really happening," said Lieutenant Susan Clark, who stood beside him. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her blue uniform was perfectly pressed. As the military's top linguist, she had spent the last 5 years studying the messages the aliens had sent ahead of their arrival. "First contact." John nodded, his throat dry. "After all our years looking at the stars and wondering." The room around them buzzed with activity. Scientists checked readings, military personnel monitored defense systems, and government officials whispered nervously to each other. This meeting would change human history forever. "The transport is ready, Commander," said a young officer. "The welcome team should board now." John and Susan joined the small group heading to meet the aliens. They were the military representatives, joining 3 scientists and 2 diplomats on the first human team to speak with the Galactic Empire. As their small ship docked with a massive alien vessel, John felt his heart racing. The airlock cycled open with a hiss, revealing a long hallway made of some shiny blue metal. "Remember the protocol," Susan whispered. "No sudden movements. Keep your hands visible. Follow their lead for greetings." At the end of the hallway stood 3 figures. They were tall and thin with pale purple skin and 4 arms each. They wore elaborate metal suits that seemed to shift colors as they moved. The tallest alien stepped forward. "I am Lord Zax Turl, 3rd emissary of the Galactic Imperial Court," he said in perfect English. "I speak for Emperor Vexmoran, ruler of the 7 spiral arms and protector of civilized space." The human diplomats bowed slightly. "We welcome you to Earth and the Sol system," said the lead diplomat. "We are honored by your presence and eager to join the galactic community." Lord Zax Turl's large eyes blinked slowly. "You misunderstand. This is not an invitation. This is an inspection." The room grew tense. Susan stepped forward. "Perhaps there's been a translation error, Lord Zax Turl. We received messages of peaceful contact." "Yes," the alien said. "Peaceful assessment of your species to determine your proper place. We have watched your transmissions. You are violent, fractious, and technically primitive. The Empire must decide how to manage potentially dangerous species." John felt a chill run down his spine. "Manage." The alien gestured with one of his lower arms, and a screen appeared in the air. It showed images of Earth, war zones, pollution, riots. "Your kind fights itself constantly. You damage your own world. Primitive and dangerous. The most prudent action would be quarantine." "Quarantine?" Susan asked, her training helping her keep her voice calm. "What does that mean exactly?" Another alien stepped forward. "It means restriction to your home planet. Removal of space capabilities. Prevention of further spread until maturity is reached, if ever." John started to protest, but Susan grabbed his arm, whispering, "Wait." She turned to a small device on her wrist, pressing buttons quickly. Her eyes widened as she read something. "Commander," she said quietly, "they're scanning our defense systems, and there's a hidden message in their transmission signal. I think they're calling in ships." Lord Zax Turl smiled, showing teeth that looked like small needles. "Your species is even more primitive than we thought if you believe we cannot understand your whispers. Yes, the Imperial fleet approaches. Your dangerous development will be stopped before it can threaten galactic peace." Alarms suddenly blared. A human officer rushed in. Multiple objects just appeared near Mars. Hundreds of ships. "How quickly can we get back to Earth?" John asked Susan urgently. "Not quickly enough," she replied, looking at her device. "They're jamming conventional transport." As chaos erupted around them, Susan pulled John toward a small door. "I found an emergency escape pod on the station schematics, if we can reach it." Lord Zax Turl watched them with cold eyes. "Run if you wish. It changes nothing. By sunset tomorrow, humanity will understand its proper place in the universe. John and Susan raced down the corridor, the sound of explosions already reaching them from the docking bay. Earth had one day to prepare for an attack it never saw coming. Admiral Olivia Wright walked slowly down the long underground tunnel. The red emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls. Behind her, 6 armed guards kept pace, their boots echoing on the metal floor. "How long has this been here?" asked the President of the United Nations, who walked beside her. 50 years, said Olivia. "Since we got the first alien signals in 2073. They reached a massive door at the end of the tunnel. Olivia pressed her hand to a scanner, then leaned forward for an eye scan. The door slid open with a soft hiss. "Welcome to Aegis Space," she said, leading the group into a vast underground chamber carved into the Martian bedrock. The President gasped. Spread out before them was an enormous construction bay. Hundreds of ships hung in special gravity-free zones. Workers in special suits moved between them, welding metal and installing systems. "This is impossible," said the President. "We would have known about this." "No," said Olivia. "This was the best-kept secret in human history. Every nation contributed, but only a few thousand people knew the full truth." Dr. Alan Rodriguez approached them. He was a short man with thick glasses and messy gray hair. "The escape pod from Orbital Station Delta has arrived," he said. "Commander Mitchell and Lieutenant Clark are being brought here now." "How bad is it?" asked Olivia. "Very bad. The Imperial fleet will reach Earth in less than 20 hours. Their weapons are beyond anything we've seen." They walked to a large meeting room where John and Susan waited. Both looked exhausted. John had a bandage on his arm. "Admiral," said John, standing quickly. "The aliens." "I know," said Olivia. "Tell me about their ships, their weapons." As John spoke, describing the Imperial fleet, Olivia nodded slowly. When he finished, she turned to Dr. Rodriguez. "Will our ships work?" she asked. "They will," said Alan. "The technology from the crashed alien scout we found in the Arctic in 2087 gave us a good foundation. Our approach to faster-than-light travel is different from theirs, but it works." "Different how?" asked the President. Alan smiled slightly. "Their ships punch through space. Ours slip between the cracks. Less efficient, but it has one huge advantage. They can't detect us until we choose to be seen." Olivia walked to a large window overlooking the main bay. The largest ship hung in the center, a massive black vessel shaped like an arrowhead. "That's the flagship," she said. "The Defiance. There are 287 combat-ready ships, plus support vessels." Susan stepped forward. "But the Imperial fleet has thousands of ships. I saw their deployment plans." "Yes," said Olivia. "We are outnumbered and outgunned, but they don't know we exist." She pressed a button on the wall, and a large screen showed the solar system. Small red dots appeared near Mars, representing the approaching Imperial fleet. "They think Earth has some orbital platforms and a few short-range ships. They expect no real resistance." Olivia's voice hardened. "That's our advantage." "What's the plan?" asked John. "Operation Thunderbolt," said Olivia. "We've prepared for this possibility for decades. Our fleet will use phase shift technology to appear directly among their formation. Maximum surprise, maximum impact." Dr. Rodriguez pointed to different sections of the display. "We've analyzed the limited data we have on their ships. Their shield configurations leave these areas vulnerable if attacked from close range. We target those points, then disappear before they can respond." "A hit-and-run attack?" asked Susan. "Against their entire fleet?" "Multiple attacks," said Olivia. "From all directions. Chaos and confusion are our allies." The President looked pale. "The risk is enormous. If we fail." "If we fail," said Olivia quietly, "humanity becomes a prisoner species on its own planet. Forever." John looked at the ships through the window. "How many people know how to fly these?" Not enough, said Olivia. Every trained pilot will fly. Including you, Commander. A siren suddenly blared. A voice came over the speakers. Imperial scouts detected entering Mars orbit. All personnel to battle stations. They're ahead of schedule, said Alan, checking his datapad. Then so are we, said Olivia. She turned to John and Susan. Report to Bay 7 for ship assignment. We launch in 1 hour. As they hurried from the room, Olivia looked once more at the waiting fleet. Humanity's last, best hope, and the Empire's biggest surprise. Grand Admiral Vextarath stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship, the Eternal Glory. The massive ship was over 5 miles long and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Through the main viewport, he could see Earth, a blue-green planet that looked peaceful from this distance. Such a primitive world, he said. Hardly worth my time. Sub-Commander Krill approached and bowed deeply. The fleet is in position, Grand Admiral. All ships report ready for the operation. Show me their defenses, ordered Vextarath. A 3-dimensional map appeared in the air. It showed Earth's orbital stations and small defensive fleet, just a few dozen ships and platforms. Pathetic, said the Grand Admiral. Their most powerful weapon couldn't even scratch our smallest vessel. Yes, sir, said Krill. Our scans confirm they have no faster-than-light capability. Their furthest outpost is on their red planet. The largest human settlement has fewer than 500 people. Vextarath smiled, showing his needle-like teeth. Begin the demonstration. Target their largest orbital station. Let them see what real power looks like. Meanwhile, far from the main Imperial fleet, Captain Laura Bennett piloted her small scout ship, the Ghost Rider, through the darkness of space. The ship was painted matte black and used the special phase shift technology that made it invisible to Imperial scanners. Position update, said her co-pilot, Lieutenant Greg Howard. We're within range of their command ships, said Laura. Passive scans only. Don't give away our position. The Ghost Rider silently glided between 2 massive Imperial cruisers. Neither ship detected the small human vessel. Laura carefully navigated closer to the flagship, where they could intercept communications. I'm getting something, said Greg, listening through his headset. They're planning to hit the International Space Station, first as a demonstration of their power. Then they'll target major cities to force a surrender. Laura's face hardened. Record everything. We need to get this intel back to Admiral Wright. On the Eternal Glory, Vextarath received a message from Lord Zax Turrell. The diplomatic team has returned from Earth's orbital station, said Zax Turrell. 2 humans escaped our detention. They may have warned their leaders. It doesn't matter, said Vextarath. What can they do? Prepare a few more of their toy ships. Our fleet numbers over 3,000 vessels. There is something strange in their historical records, said Zax Turrell. They seem unusually adapted to warfare for such a young species. All primitives fight among themselves, dismissed the Grand Admiral. It's why they need our guidance. He turned to Krill. Prepare the first bombardment. Target their orbital station, but use minimal power. We want to frighten them, not destroy their world yet. Krill relayed the orders. Across the Imperial fleet, weapons systems powered up. Back on the Ghost Rider, Laura and Greg watched as energy readings spiked across the enemy fleet. They're preparing to fire, said Greg. We have what we need, said Laura. Setting course back to Mars. Prepare for phase shift jump. The small scout ship slipped away, undetected by the massive warships surrounding it. On Earth, billions of people looked up at the night sky, seeing the strange lights of the alien fleet. Many prayed. Some panicked. Most simply waited, not knowing what was coming. In underground bunkers around the world, military leaders received the reports from Mars. The hidden fleet was launching. Operation Thunderbolt was underway. Admiral Wright stood in the Launch Control Center on Mars, watching as pilots ran to their ships. Commander John Mitchell and Lieutenant Susan Clark were assigned to the assault carrier Defiance. Dr. Rodriguez monitored the deployment from a special research vessel called Breakthrough. All ships report ready, said a controller. Olivia nodded. Phase shift on my mark. Remember the plan. Appear inside their formation. Target their command ships and weapons platforms. Then disappear before they can lock onto you. She looked at the display showing the Imperial fleet surrounding Earth. They think we're helpless, she said quietly. Let's show them how wrong they are. She pressed the launch button. For Earth, she said as the first ships began to shimmer and disappear, jumping into phase shift. Grand Admiral Vextarath gave the order to fire on Earth's space station. He never saw the human fleet coming. Grand Admiral Vextarath watched as the weapons officer prepared to fire on Earth's space station. The massive energy cannons hummed as they charged. Fire when ready, he said calmly. The weapons officer raised his hand to press the firing control. He never got the chance. Without warning, space itself seemed to tear open. Where there had been empty blackness moments before, hundreds of human ships suddenly appeared. They materialized directly among the Imperial fleet, some appearing just meters from the larger alien vessels. What is happening? Shouted Vextarath, grabbing a rail as his flagship shook from a nearby explosion. Unknown ships, cried Krill. They're everywhere. Aboard the assault carrier Defiance, Major William Foster gave the order to fire. His ship had appeared less than a kilometer from one of the Empire's heavy cruisers. All weapons, full power, he commanded. Hit them before they can raise their shields. The Defiance's main cannons fired, sending bright blue energy beams into the side of the Imperial ship. The cruiser's hull, not protected by active shields, tore open like paper. Secondary explosions rippled along its length. Direct hit, reported the weapons officer. Their shields were down. Target their engines next, said William. Then prepare to phase shift to the next target. All across the Imperial formation, the same scene played out. Human ships appeared without warning, fired at point-blank range, then disappeared again before the Empire could respond. On the Eternal Glory, chaos reigned. Alarms blared as damage reports flooded in from dozens of ships. How is this possible? Demanded Vextarath. Where did these ships come from? Unknown. Grand Admiral, said a shaken Krill. Our scanners didn't detect them until they appeared, and now many are disappearing again. Raise all shields. Return fire, ordered Vextarath. The Imperial ships began to respond, their powerful weapons turning to face the attackers. But the human vessels were already shifting position, appearing and disappearing in a carefully planned pattern. John Mitchell piloted a smaller attack ship called the Swift, with Susan Clark managing weapons and communications. Phase shift complete, he said as their ship reappeared near an Imperial supply vessel. Target locked. Susan fired their main weapons, watching as the energy torpedoes struck the alien ship's fuel cells. The resulting explosion was blinding. Good hit, said John, preparing for next jump. Their ship shimmered and vanished just as 3 Imperial fighters turned toward them. In the command center on Mars, Admiral Wright watched the battle unfold on the main display. The human fleet was inflicting heavy damage, but the Imperial ships were beginning to organize their defense. Phase 2, she ordered. All ships target their command and control systems. On the research vessel Breakthrough, Dr. Rodriguez analyzed the data streaming in from the battle. Their shields adapt quickly, he noted, but they have a weakness. The power fluctuates when they fire their main weapons. He sent this information to the fleet. Attack when they're firing. That's when their shields are weakest. The human ships adjusted their tactics, timing their attacks to coincide with the Imperial weapons fire. Grand Admiral Vextarath struggled to regain control of the situation. His perfect formation was in disarray, with ships firing in all directions at enemies that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. This is impossible, he said. These primitives shouldn't have this technology. An explosion rocked the flagship as a human vessel appeared directly above it, firing down on its command tower before vanishing again. Damage to decks 5 through 8, reported an officer. Shield generators 3 and 4 are offline. For the first time in his long career, Vexterath felt fear. "Send a message to the fleet," he ordered. "Titan formation. Protect the flagship." As the Imperial ships began to move closer together, William Foster saw an opportunity. "They're clustering their ships," he told his crew. "That makes them an easier target for our larger weapons." He opened a channel to Admiral Wright. "Request permission to deploy the Nova charges." On Mars, Olivia Wright considered the request. The Nova charges were humanity's most powerful weapons, designed to create artificial solar flares that could disable multiple ships at once. "Permission granted," she said. "Show them what happens when they threaten Earth." As the Imperial fleet drew together for protection, they had no idea they were falling into a trap. The battle for Earth was far from over, but humanity had landed the first blow. The space around Earth lit up with explosions as the battle raged on. Captain Linda Reeves piloted her corvette, the Swift Justice, through the chaos. Her ship was smaller and faster than most, perfect for drawing enemy fire away from important targets. "Earth Orbital Station reports Imperial fighters approaching," said her first officer. "They're going after the civilian shelters." Linda's jaw tightened. "Not on my watch. Set course to intercept." The Swift Justice turned sharply, its engines glowing bright blue as it accelerated toward Earth's orbit. 3 larger Imperial ships noticed and gave chase. "They took the bait," said Linda with grim satisfaction. "Let's keep their attention." Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, Colonel Frank Martinez coordinated the ground defenses. Reports came in of Imperial landing craft breaking through the atmosphere over several major cities. "Deploy anti-air batteries in all threatened zones," he ordered from the underground command center. "Civilian evacuation status. 80% complete in major target areas," replied his assistant. "Underground shelters are filling up fast." Frank nodded. "We just need to hold them off long enough for the fleet to do its job." Outside, people rushed to shelter as air raid sirens wailed. The sky glowed with distant explosions visible even in daylight. The battle raging in orbit. Aboard the research vessel Breakthrough, Dr. Rodriguez and his team worked frantically to analyze the data coming in from the battle. "Their shield frequency changes every 60 seconds, he noted, studying sensor readings from an Imperial battleship. "But there's a 3-second vulnerability during each change." He quickly transmitted this information to the fleet. "Attack during the shield cycling. You'll have a 3-second window." The human ships adjusted their tactics, timing their strikes to exploit this weakness. On the Imperial flagship, Grand Admiral Vexterath struggled to comprehend what was happening. His mighty fleet, which had conquered 100 worlds, was being hit from all sides by an enemy that shouldn't exist. "Status report," he demanded. 17 capital ships destroyed," said Krill, his voice shaking. 43 heavily damaged. We've lost over 200 fighters." "And the humans?" "We've confirmed 35 of their ships destroyed." "But—" Krill hesitated. "Speak," commanded Vexterath. "They keep disappearing and reappearing. It's difficult to get accurate counts." The flagship shook as another explosion rocked it. Warning lights flashed across the command deck. "Engine 3 is offline," reported an officer. "Shield power at 60% and falling." For the first time, Vexterath considered a possibility that had seemed unthinkable hours before: defeat. Back on the Swift Justice, Linda Reeves and her crew had successfully drawn 3 Imperial warships away from Earth's orbital stations. But now they were caught in the crossfire, with enemy ships on all sides. "Shields at 20%, warned the engineer. "We can't take much more of this." Linda studied her tactical display, looking for an escape route. "Prepare for emergency phase shift. We'll jump on my mark." Before she could give the order, a massive explosion lit up space behind them. One of the Imperial ships chasing them erupted in flames as a new vessel appeared, the Defiance, commanded by Major William Foster. "Looked like you could use some help," came William's voice over the comm. "Your timing is perfect," replied Linda. "Let's finish these 2. Working together, the Swift Justice and the Defiance engaged the remaining Imperial ships. Their coordinated attacks overwhelmed the enemy vessel's defenses. On Mars, Admiral Wright received word that the Nova charges were ready. These weapons, humanity's most powerful, could disable dozens of ships at once by creating an electromagnetic pulse similar to a solar flare, but they had to be placed at the center of the enemy fleet to be effective. "Who's in position to deliver the payload?" she asked. The tactical officer checked the battle display. "The Defiance is closest to the enemy formation center." Wright opened a channel. "Major Foster, you are tasked with delivering the Nova payload to these coordinates." She transmitted the target location. Williams studied the coordinates. They would place his ship right next to the Imperial flagship. "Understood, Admiral," he replied. "We'll get it done." As he closed the channel, William looked at his crew. "Prepare for phase shift. We're going right into the heart of their fleet." The crew members exchanged nervous glances, but moved quickly to their stations. Everyone knew what was at stake. The Defiance disappeared, preparing for what might be its final mission. The Defiance reappeared just 300 meters from the Imperial flagship. At this distance, the enemy vessel looked impossibly large, like a metal mountain floating in space. "Nova charges ready," reported the weapons officer. 30 seconds to deployment. Major William Foster gripped his command chair as enemy turrets swiveled toward them. Evasive maneuvers. Full power to forward shields. The Defiance twisted and turned, dodging the first volley of energy blasts. Return fire from the human vessel seemed tiny against the massive flagship, but each shot was precisely aimed at weapons emplacements and sensor arrays. 20 seconds to Nova deployment, said the weapons officer. On the Imperial flagship, Grand Admiral Vex Dorath stared in disbelief at the human ship that had appeared so close. "Destroy that vessel immediately," he ordered. "We're trying, sir," said Krill. "But it's too close for our main weapons, and it keeps evading the smaller turrets." A shudder ran through the flagship as the Defiance scored another hit. 15 seconds, counted the weapons officer on the Defiance. William opened a comm channel. "All nearby human ships, clear the area immediately. Nova deployment imminent." Across the battlefield, human vessels began to phase shift away from the center of the Imperial formation. 10 seconds. On Mars, Admiral Olivia Wright watched tensely. The Nova charges were untested in actual combat. If they worked as designed, they would create an electromagnetic pulse that would disable all electronics within a massive radius. 5 seconds. William took a deep breath. "Prepare for emergency phase shift. We'll deploy the charges and jump immediately." 3, 2, 1. "Deploy Nova charges. Phase shift now," William shouted. The Defiance released the Nova charges and began to shimmer as its phase shift engaged. But at that moment, a lucky shot from the Imperial flagship struck its engine section. "Phase shift damage," cried the engineer. "We can't jump." The Nova charges activated, glowing with bright white energy. William knew they had less than 5 seconds before detonation. "All power to engines. Get us away from those charges." The damaged ship lurched forward, struggling to put distance between itself and the Nova charges. Behind them, the charges exploded in a blinding flash of light. A wave of energy spread outward in all directions, washing over dozens of Imperial ships. As the energy hit each vessel, its lights flickered and died. The mighty warships went dark, drifting helplessly. The edge of the energy wave caught the fleeing Defiance, sending electrical surges through its systems. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Emergency lights came on as main power failed. "Damage report," William called through the smoke filling the bridge. "We're alive," said his first officer in amazement. "Engines offline. Weapons offline. Life support on emergency backup." William looked at the view screen, which was barely functioning. The Imperial flagship, just visible through the static, was completely dark. No lights, no weapons, no engines. "It worked," he said softly. On the Imperial flagship, battery-powered emergency systems provided minimal lighting. Grand Admiral Vex Darath stood in shocked silence as officers reported total systems failure throughout the fleet. "How?" he finally asked. "How did primitives do this to us?" Before anyone could answer, a new alarm sounded, one of the few systems still functioning. "New contacts detected," reported an officer. "Massive energy signatures, coming from the direction of the gas giant." Vex Darath rushed to a viewport. In the distance, barely visible, new lights appeared. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. The main human fleet, hidden behind Jupiter until now, was on the move. Commander Kate Summers stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Reckoning, the true flagship of humanity's forces. Around her, hundreds of warships emerged from behind the gas giant where they had been concealed. "The Nova charges worked," she told her crew. "The Imperial Center is disabled. Move in and secure their flagship." As the human reinforcements approached, Admiral Wright sent a message from Mars to all Earth forces. Phase 3 beginning. All ships engage remaining active Imperial vessels. Boarding parties prepare to capture disabled ships. At the same time, across the galaxy, another message was being sent. Captain Paul Winters, commanding a small fleet of human sleeper ships positioned near key Imperial worlds, received the signal he had been waiting for. "Message from Earth Command," his communications officer reported. "Operation Sword of Damocles is authorized." Hall nodded grimly. "Send the ultimatum to Imperial High Command. If they don't withdraw from Earth immediately, we begin attacks on their core worlds." The battle was far from over, but the tide had turned. The Empire's greatest shock was yet to come. 3 months after the battle for Earth, Admiral Olivia Wright stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch. Through the viewport, she could see the Imperial capital planet, Vex Morin Prime. Its 3 moons glowed softly in the light of a distant red sun. "Never thought I'd be here under peaceful terms," she said to Susan Clark, who now served as her chief diplomatic advisor. "Peace through strength," replied Susan. "They only respect power." The Olive Branch moved slowly toward the massive Imperial space station that orbited the capital. 6 human warships, including the repaired Defiance, escorted the diplomatic vessel. On the station, Grand Admiral Vex Darath prepared to meet the human delegation. His pride still stung from the defeated Earth, but the Empire had been forced to accept new realities. "I still don't understand how we missed it," he said to Lord Zax Turrell. "How did we not detect their fleet building?" "They are more clever than we thought," said Zax Turrell. "And perhaps we have grown too comfortable in our power." Captain Paul Winters' sleeper ships had proven to be the final shock. For decades, humanity had secretly sent small, stealthy vessels to position themselves near key Imperial worlds. Each carried planet-killer weapons. When activated during the battle for Earth, they had forced Imperial High Command to choose between continuing the attack on Earth or saving their core worlds. "The Emperor arrives," announced an aide. Both Imperial officers bowed as Emperor Vex Morin entered the chamber. He was taller than most of his species, with skin that had turned from purple to gray with age. "These humans," said the Emperor, "I wish to understand them better before they arrive." "They are contradictions, Your Majesty," said Zax Turrell. "They fight among themselves constantly yet united perfectly against us. Their technology is less advanced than ours, yet they found ways to use it that we never considered. And they were willing to risk everything," added Vex Darath. "If we had destroyed Earth, their sleeper ships would have destroyed our core worlds in revenge. They planned for mutual destruction if necessary." The Emperor nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is why they are dangerous. And perhaps that is why they are worthy of respect." The Olive Branch docked with the station. Admiral Wright led the human delegation, which included John Mitchell, Susan Clark, and Dr. Rodriguez. "Remember," she told them quietly as they prepared to disembark, "we are not here as conquered or conquerors. We are here as equals." The meeting chamber was large and ornate, with high ceilings and strange crystal decorations that seemed to float in midair. The emperor waited at the far end, seated on a simple chair rather than the grand throne that was his right. As the humans entered, he stood, a gesture of respect that shocked the imperial officials present. "Admiral Wright," he said, using the translation device at his throat. "Earth has taught the Empire a valuable lesson, one we needed to learn." Olivia bowed slightly. "And what lesson is that, Your Majesty?" "That age does not equal wisdom. That size does not equal strength." The Emperor smiled, showing his needle teeth in what the humans now knew was a friendly gesture. "That assumptions can be deadly." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward with a data device. "We have brought scientific and cultural information to share, as agreed in the preliminary peace terms." An Imperial scientist accepted the device. In return, he offered a similar one to Rodriguez. "As have we." In the months since the battle, both sides had begun cautious exchanges. The humans shared their phase shift technology, while the Empire shared advances in medicine and energy production. "There is much we can learn from each other," said the Emperor, "if we can move past fear." "Fear comes from the unknown," said Olivia. "We are here to become known to each other." As they began the formal peace negotiations, John Mitchell stood near a viewport, looking out at the stars. Just 3 months ago, humanity had faced extinction. Now they were negotiating as equals with the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. "Quite a view," said Susan, joining him. "It's only the beginning," replied John. "There's a whole galaxy out there. And now it knows not to underestimate us." On distant worlds throughout the Empire, other species watched the news of the treaty with Earth, some with hope, others with new ideas. The humans had done what many thought impossible. They had forced the Empire to negotiate. The age of imperial expansion was over. A new era had begun.